Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Diane Deziel and today I'm doing with you kids grading. Now to do the kids grading, you could start by getting those measurement chart that I put on my Wix site. They're for kids. Here I have in centimeter 2 to 9 and I have in inches 2 to 16. You will also find babies grading. The main difference between the 24-month and the size 2, it's because at that age some baby or some kids, they still wear diaper. So a pant, for example, size 24-month will still have the snap inside the leg for the diaper changes. Now let me present you my two lovely grandson and granddaughter. There is James, 4 years and a half, and Arya, 2 years and a half. Last summer I took my little one's measurement. Arya was 1 year old, and compared to the measurement of my chart, I find out that she was wearing size 2. That's why I call my block size 2, and those are the ones that I'm starting with. Now a year and a half later, she's now wearing size 4, a little loose, but that's the size that the mother buy. And since I already grade from size 2 to size 4, I'm now going to show you kids grading to make the same block for my 4 year and a half James. Now look at your grading chart or mine or another one that you have, and you will see the step between the size. Usually for the bust, waist and hip, it's grading proportional about 2 to 2.5 centimeter between each size. But the main grading and the most important one is the vertical grading. While for women, we have a very small grading, like a 5 millimeter or 1/4 inch between each size to compensate for the roundness of the body. For kids, on this chart, you'll be able to see that the bodice will grade 1.5 per size. And if you look at the sleeve, while for women it's fixed, for kids, it's going to grade 3 centimeter per size. And on this paper, you usually also have the grading for the inseam of the pant that is more or less 3.5 centimeter. So for today's example, I already grade Arya's bodice because she now needs a size 4, so that I already did. But James now needs a size 6, so I will be starting with my size 4 and we will grade it 2 sizes bigger, so up to size 6. First thing to do, as usual, is going to be to trace your block that you're starting with. Trace it all around. Now the first thing to do for the grading is going to be to add the length that we need. Now from this paper, it says that I should elongate 1.5 centimeter per size, and I want to go from a size 4 to a size 6. 2 size times 1.5 is going to be 3 centimeter longer. So I'm going to add my 3 centimeter longer. I indicate at 2 different places because my front bodice is a little bit curved. Then I'll be using my Toolfully grading ruler and find out which dot I should use to grade my kid's bodice. Now if you remember, I needed all around 2 centimeter, so divided by 4, it's 5 millimeter. So go check on one of the side seam point or at the waist or at the underarm and go check where do you have the difference of 5 millimeter because we are grading 1/4 of the garment. As you could see, the smaller grading, so the one that goes inside, is all good for kids grading because the difference between the 2 small dots is 0.5 and the difference between the 2 next one is 0.6. So you could use either one. So these one or these one. So for this grading, I'm going to use the smaller one for the 0 point, and I will point out 2 sizes bigger for my size 6. Now let's start the grading. As usual, I'm going to start with the neck and go all around so I don't forget anything. I'm going to use the smallest size as my 0 and point it 2 sizes up. So my smaller point on my trace line, I put my ruler ruler parallel to the grain line and I point 2 size up. Now I could go to the next point, that's going to be armhole and shoulder point. Smaller size as my 0, the ruler parallel to the center front and I point 2 size up. The next point is the shoulder blade, and if you remember I usually say about 2 centimeters higher than the armhole notch, but since it's kid I'm going to place my smaller point about 1 centimeter higher than the notch. Put the ruler parallel and point 2 size bigger. I continue with the underarm point. Again, the small size on parallel, point 2 size bigger. Now the waist and side seam point, small size on the trace line, parallel to the grain line, 2 size bigger. And we finish there because we already have the waist center front point graded. Now I just put bigger dot so you could see better my grading. And at this point we usually connect the line, the straight line with the ruler and the curved line with the block. But before doing that, since it's kids, if you remember, we start with the length measurement that is not on the grading ruler. So we're going to have to report the waist and side seam point at this level. Place your ruler 90 degrees from that bottom line that you did and just report the right width or horizontal grading. Now we're going to start connecting the dot. I'm going to do the shoulder line with a straight line and the side seam touching my new waist point. Now I'm going to use the block to trace the 3 curved lines, neckline, armhole, and the waist. Starting with the neckline, I'm going to place my block in the middle of the size 4 trace line and the new size 6. Very little. You hold it there and you're going to pivot your block until it touches about the first third of the neckline. Then we could trace part of the neckline. Next, you move it up to the final point and again pivot your block so you touch your new line. Finish to trace your neckline. Now for the armhole, you place your block at the tip of the shoulder, pivot until it touches the shoulder blade area and just trace. For the underarm part, we'll do the same like I show you for women's or men's pattern. You're going to place the underarm point in the middle of both sides, then pivot your block until you touch your shoulder blade. At this point, you're going to trace from there to about 1 centimeter after the notch. Then you're going to move your block towards the final destination, tracing a little bit at the time. We're almost done. Now just the waist. If you remember, we did a straight line for the vertical grading already, so it is already square. So you could just place your block right on, touching both points, and just report the curve. Now the front is finished. We would have to do the same thing again with the back. And remember that my grading ruler are transparent, so you could easily pivot it and use the other side grading to grade your back in the proper position. But for today's example, I'm not going to grade the back because it's exactly the same as the front, but I will grade the sleeve. Here again, we're going to trace all around the pattern of the sleeve, and we're also going to indicate the grain line, so the middle line, and we're going to trace it top to the bottom. Here again, we're going to start by adding the length that we need. I said that the bottom of the sleeve for kids should grade about 3 centimeters per size. Since I want to go from a size 4 to a size 6, I'm going to need 6 centimeters. So I suggest that you're adding it before so you don't forget like I did for this one. Here I'm going to use exactly the same dot that I used for my bodice. So my 0 point will be the smallest size and I'm going to point 2 sizes bigger. I will start with the sleeve head. So I continue with my underarm point, and remember the small size is your 0 point, and place the ruler parallel to the grain line that you trace and point 2 sizes bigger. One more point for this side is the side of the sleeve. So this point here, again, I'm going to place the 0 right on and point 2 sizes bigger. To grade the point for the other side, just flip your ruler and we continue with the bottom point. Again, I place my smaller size right on, parallel to the grain, and point out 2 sizes bigger. The last point to do is the underarm point of this side, and I will do the same thing again. Smallest size is my 0, ruler parallel to the grain, and point 2 sizes bigger. Here again, I'm going to start by reporting the bottom point to the length of the sleeve. Place your ruler 90 degrees from the bottom line and just report the width on the bottom line on both sides. Now you're going to take your sleeve pattern, put it on the bottom line, and retrace the jog and the notch on both sides. Once you have your notch, you could just connect with a straight line. Anyway, for this basic sleeve, because that's a straight line, from the underarm point to the notch on both sides. Now we're going to do the sleeve head. You could see here my grading point. And to trace the sleeve head, you're going to take your block, put it on the grain line, and move it up until you reach to your new point. Then you could trace both sides of the grain line for about 5 centimeters. Then place your underarm point between the 2 sizes. Pivot the block until you touch the line that you just traced. And you could trace from that level to about 1 centimeter past the notch. Then you're going to trace little bit by little bit until your final destination, moving the block. Then we do the same thing on the other side. Now when you grade sleeve, adult sleeve or kid sleeve, it's the same thing. You should always do a verification to make sure that your notch still match with the sleeve. Now I show you how I do the verification. My block has the seam allowance already included, so you're gonna go find the inside intersection, so the seam line, place it right at the contour of the sleeve and use this point as your pivot. So you pivot your block and move the pivot as soon as you don't see the trace line of the sleeve. So over here, hold it there. Pivot some more. You see your sleeve line. Hold it there. Pivot some more until you reach the notch. When you reach your notch, just mark it so you could compare with what you got. You see the green one? It was a little bit off, so 2-3 millimeters off. So that's the one, the corrected one that I'll use when I notch my sleeve block. That's it for today. Don't forget to go subscribe to my channel if you didn't yet. Thanks for watching, and I see you next time.